What's going on, Hoops Tribe? You're in for episode 7 of Let's Talk Hoops. Thank you for everybody that keeps coming back. And if this is your first time listening, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like and share with all your hoop loving friends. Now, on this episode, we're into the Commissioner's Cup and it's heating up. Indiana and New York are at the top in the Eastern Conference. Didn't think that Indiana was going to make that turnaround. So, right now, it looks like Indiana's number one, New York at number two. I'm not sure why that's the case. I'm just reading straight off the WNBA website because the point differential for New York is 56, while Indiana's has a 36 point difference. So I'm not sure why Indiana is ranked over New York at this point, but that's what
I
it is.
think,
And then we have Connecticut at number three, Atlanta at number four, Chicago at number five, and the Washington Mystics at number six. Were you about to say something about that?
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Indiana has played more Commissioner Cup games than New York, so that's why. Because Indiana
Right now,
played,
right now it's saying they both played two.
interesting.
Yeah, so that's why I'm confused. They both have played two, they both have zero losses, and New York has a bigger point difference. They're at 56, while Indiana's point difference was 36. So,
That's
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm not sure why it's showing up that way, but maybe we'll find it out in the comments because sometimes you guys know more than us. Now, in the Western Conference, we have Minnesota leading, and then we have Seattle at number two, Phoenix at three, the Sparks at four, Vegas at five, Golden State at six, and Dallas at seven. Minnesota has two wins with zero losses. Their point difference is 34, while Seattle has two wins and one loss with a point difference of 13. Any thoughts on those standings?
They make sense when you see how these different teams have been playing, other than the Indiana and New York confusion with the point differential. It makes sense, right? These teams are the teams that we expect to be dominating. We expect New York to dominate. We expect Seattle to dominate. We expect Minnesota to dominate. And we've even said Phoenix is looking like a championship contending team. So, with those things in mind, it makes sense that right now those are the teams that are dominating the Commissioner's Cup.
So the only thing that I can see that may be the difference here is that Indiana has a win over Chicago, and Chicago is ranked higher than Connecticut. So maybe that win counted more. But again, I don't know. If you know, write it in the comments because I'm very curious. So moving on into a question from the Hoops Tribe, I'm gonna actually mix some of your questions into our topics today. But the first question that we have is, you briefly mentioned wanting to talk about it before, but what are your thoughts on the rules surrounding drafting international players versus those in college? Thank you, Brooklyn, for the question. And I just want to say that my thoughts surrounding this are pretty straightforward. Right now, international players can come into the league at 19. I think that whatever the age limit is, it should just be a universal age limit. So if players can come in at 19 internationally, then I think that if we have a 19-year-old here in the States, if they're ready to play and they want to be drafted, they should be able to enter the draft. That's one thing. And then I also think that if a player is an international player, they should be ready to play immediately. So if we're going to draft a player, I don't want to see them wait 2 seasons before they become active. I'm not saying that they can't be signed. Yes, if an international player, if a team wants to draft an international player, instead of drafting them and taking up that draft spot from someone domestic, sign them after the draft. That's my thing. If you should only enter the draft if you're ready to play. And I know that gets a little murky because we have players that are injured that get drafted and they won't be able to play for a season. We've seen that with Elizabeth Kitley. I feel the same way about that. If you're injured, then you can get signed after the draft, but leave that draft spot for someone that's ready to play right now. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, the only con I can see to allowing someone who's 19 domestically entering the draft and being drafted right away is, let's say they get cut, right, from training camp. Then what do they do? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure once you enter the WNBA draft, you can't rescind that to go back to school and use your eligibility anymore.
That is
So that
correct.
would be right. So that would be my only concern about that. But then again, you might have some 19-year-olds who are out here and ready to hoop and look pro ready, right? That can't happen because with the international players, like yeah, they get cut, but they can always go back in back to their country and hoop. I'm not sure what the lowest age is to hoop internationally if you are, an American. I'm not sure if that corresponds vice versa. If like a 19-year-old from here gets waived, if they can go internationally and
They
play or
can.
not.
They can.
They can? Okay.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if they have the same opportunities, then sure, why not? Let them go ahead and do it. And as for like the staff and dash, ugh, words today. Wow. Draft and stash, that really it comes down to the organization. It's really not even so much the players, right? Because you have some players that really do want to come over and they're ready to play and they think that they can play. And then they get into one preseason game and their organization's just like, yeah, no, we're not going to let you do this. We're going to hold on to your rights. So I think if the players had a little bit more autonomy, then sure, come over, advocate for yourself, go ahead and be ready to play.
That's a good point. I think you make a really good point about the college player, rescinding their eligibility. But there's a lot of changes in the college landscape that brings up, the NCAA just made it so that colleges can pay players directly instead of if I'm not mistaken, I haven't read all the way up on it. So it doesn't I don't know how that impacts NIL, but I just know that colleges can now pay players directly. So with things changing what seems like every day, who knows if that won't be something that changes. But I think that you're right. If until they change having to rescind your college eligibility, then it's going to stay as it is. But I think that that's something that should change as well. But moving on into the injury report, we have a very long list. If you want to read that off for us today.
Yeah. Okay. So going into this injury report, we have Courtney Vandersloot, who unfortunately went down with a knee injury last night in the game against the Fever. We have Mariah Jefferson, who's still battling a leg injury. Raya Marshall, who is battling an ankle injury. Lindsay Allen, who is been upgraded to questionable with her Achilles injury she sustained against the game against Minnesota. Olivia Nelson Ododo is her ankle is day to day. Lila Lycan is still overseas doing her commitments there. She's expected to hopefully join the Connecticut Sun in July. Then we have Tara McCowan, who has left for Eurobasket. We have Paige Beckers, who is probable. She's currently out of concussion protocol, but now is listed with an illness. Ty Harris, still out with her knee. Sophie, still out with her ankle. Caitlin Clark is being reevaluated. She might actually be able to play in the game against Atlanta. It just depends on how she feels. And then we have Ray Burrell, who's still out with her knee for 6 to 8 weeks. And the latest update that we have on Cameron Brink that was given by Lynn Roberts on Tuesday is there's actually no specific timetable for her return in terms of her return to game action. She's been doing a little bit of on-court workouts that's non-contact so far. Megan Gustafson is still out with her lower leg. Cheyenne Parker-Titus is still out with her pregnancy. Katie Lou Samuelson still out for the season with her ACL, as well as Georgia Amore being out for the season with her ACL. Megan McConnell is going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks with the knee injury she sustained in their latest game. Alyssa Thomas is still out with her calf. Kalia Copper is still out with her knee about 4 to 6 weeks. And Natasha Mack is still out with her back about 2 to 3 weeks.
Wishing all of those ladies the best. That's just hard to hear, especially so young in the season. But the only plus side to it is that it is young in the season, and some of these players were going to get back by the time things really start cooking. I'm glad we ended with Phoenix because Satou Sabally called out the commissioner. She said Cathy Engelbert added a lot of games. We had 9 games in 18 days. That's not really responsible for a commissioner. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, she's not wrong, right? She's not wrong at all. And I hope that this is a conversation that they bring up during the CBA negotiations because truly there's that concept of what will make a team better, more rest or more reps, right? There's some people that believe that no, they should go hard. The more games that they play, the faster they'll gel, the team will start playing better. But on the other side of that, if you're not really having enough time to rest in between games and you don't have enough time to practice between games, I feel like that can negatively affect a team, right? You can start wearing out your players a little bit more. They can get tired. There could be injuries that we're seeing from overuse. So while I don't necessarily disagree with her, I think she's absolutely right. I do believe that that's something that needs to be worked in because not all of these teams are getting an equal amount of practice time, and it's showing.
Yeah. So I want to just read off something that I found about the process. So it begins in July or August when the league determines the start date and end date. And those in charge of scheduling at the league office requests from teams, arenas, the availability and special dates such as camp days and jersey retirement ceremonies. They also ask for input from broadcast partners on TV windows and team matchup requests, and they try to maximize viewership interest, and it's gonna factor in ABC or CBS. Those are crucial networks. It's done by a computer-based program, and it tracks all of the data, including the required number of games against an opponent on the road and at home, and provides checks and balances to the manual job of scheduling. The league attempts to minimize high game density in back-to-back games while maximizing efficient travel, which is why there are full week trips to opposite coasts. However, it's not always realistic. So that's a little bit on what the process is like. It sounds like it does factor in a lot of things. When we think about the WNBA versus its brother, the NBA, and the NBA players are playing what, like 80 something games. So if we are, the ultimate goal is to get to that level and get the players to that salary cap, they're going to have to play more games and the schedule is going to look rigorous. And these, unfortunately, they are in the foundation of it. These players are going to, lay the foundation for what's to come, and they have to go through those growing pains. So it's going to be frustrating, frankly, but somebody got to do it. Like, I think that Satou Sabally has a great point, but it's kind of like one of those things where it is what it is. I don't know how quickly we have to, and growth is incremental. I don't know if adding these amount of games as quickly as the commissioner did really took into consideration the growing pains that can come with this type of change, like the injury increase and dealing with fatigue and those kind of things. I don't know how well that was factored in, but it's kind of like one of those things where you're just gonna have to suck it up, Satu. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out though for the NBA, yes, they have twice as many games as the W does, but they also have an extra month and a half to 2 months of their season that the W does not have, which I think to kind of take that into consideration is, are we extending the W season? Are we shortening the NBA season to accommodate for these games is something else that needs to be taken into consideration, which I don't think either entity is looking at right now, right? Because I don't think that the NBA expected this amount of growth for the W. I'm sure they expected some, but I don't think they expected or anticipated this amount. So I think that's something else that they have to consider is how do you adjust both seasons to accommodate? Because even in the NBA realm, they're talking about how 82 games is too many games for them to be playing because a lot of the players don't start to take seriously until playoff implications start to happen or their in-season tournament is happening.
So are you saying that the NBA will need to shorten its season to accommodate the WNBA?
Yeah, they're gonna have to if we want a longer W season to accommodate more games, or else we're gonna see more injuries happening.
And they would need to do this because what's the reasoning behind the NBA needing to shorten their season?
Because the W season is already short enough as it is. So if you're gonna add in, say, 15, 20 more games, you're none of this is gonna work, right? You're gonna have player fatigue, you're gonna have more injuries, you're gonna have the issues that players are currently complaining about, not having enough practice time, not having enough rest time.
And
So
so I'm trying to get at, so is it because the NBA and WNBA teams, some of them share the same arena, or is it
yeah,
because of
they
like the airtime, or what's the
no,
main reasoning behind
no,
that?
they share the same arena, they share the same practice facilities. Most of them do. There's
Okay.
very few of the W teams that have their own practice facility or have a community practice facility. Most of them are sharing facilities with their brother team, meaning that they're not getting time to practice. They're not getting time to work out because they have to accommodate their schedule.
So logistically, there's going to need to be a lot of things done before the WNBA can accommodate this change.
Correct.
Gotcha. That makes sense. All right, well, moving on into another big deal in the media, Lee Yuru requested a trade. It was a lot of things in the air when that first was announced because at first they worded it as if she was requesting a trade due to an investigation on the Seattle Storm. It has come out that there wasn't really an investigation, there was a review of a complaint, which is a slight difference. And apparently, this review came from a complaint after the Las Vegas Aces game against Seattle. We still don't know who that player was that made the complaint, or who that complaint was directed towards. Apparently, it was an assistant coach said some curse words at an Aces player. Honestly, I think that's kind of a weak complaint to begin with because I don't know. I've seen assistant coaches and players go at it before, and I don't, or head coaches and players go at it before, and I don't necessarily see a complaint come out of it. But now that that's cleared up, Lee Yuru made the trade request because she's just not getting enough playing time. What are your thoughts on Lee Yuru in Seattle? Do you think this is a valid trade request?
Yeah, I mean, when the rumors started swirling that it was an investigation of some sort, I looked at it as no, she's just not getting the playing time that she expected to get or that she needed to get. And on Seattle's end, I don't think that they expected Dom Malonga to get so comfortable so fast. So I think the idea of bringing in Lee was she was supposed to be Ezzy's primary backup. And now instead, Malonga is starting to become Ezzy's primary backup versus Lee. So I can see that, right? But then again, when Lee was in LA, this we had the same issue, right? She wasn't getting a lot of playing time. She wasn't getting a lot of time being back up to Brink and being back up to Azare when Azare came back after Brink was down. So I see that and I can understand, that being her reasoning for a trade request. However, the only teams that I can potentially see her being on where she may get a little bit more playing time would be Golden State and maybe Minnesota. Because even if she goes to Dallas, I don't see Chris using her that much in Dallas. Just looking at how he's primarily trying to use Maisha Hines Allen right now as like they're trying to make her into a point forward. So I don't know. Because even with T Mac and Louisa, T Mac isn't getting that many touches set up for her. But Louisa is starting to become more comfortable and starting to like start hunt her own shot and starting to make her own opportunities.
So, WNBA reporter Roberta Rodriguez said that this request was pressured by the Chinese national team because Yuru did not play in the Asia Cup and they thought she'd have a bigger role in Seattle. She also thought she would have a bigger role in LA. I think the truth of the matter is she's just not performing like Seattle anticipated for her to perform. I mean, I had high hopes for Yuru in Seattle, and I honestly wish that she gave it more time before she made it public that she wanted a trade request because at some point players have to hold themselves accountable. Like just because you request a trade and you're going to bounce around to another team doesn't mean that more minutes is going to make you play better. Like you have to figure out what it is that you're doing to not earn the minutes that you're looking for. Right now she's averaging 9 minutes a game. She's averaging 3 points. She's 30% from the floor. She's just been highly inconsistent. And with her size and with her ability to stretch the floor, because she can be a 3 point shooter, I'm not understanding what's not clicking. I thought that this system was really one of the best systems that she could have moved into coming out of LA. I think that Coach Quinn has done a great job with rotations and giving players time. I think that you're right. Dominique has outperformed her in the little time. And that's the thing about it. You're playing behind Nneka Ogwumike, Ezzy Magbagor. So you can't slow cook your performance. You have to come in like a microwave. You got to be ready to play every single time. You have to be efficient around the basket. So I think that she needs to take accountability for herself. Now, as far as who she can move to, I think that Dallas would be her best bet if she's looking for playing time. I think Conclanis is starting to adjust off the fact that we saw Maddie Segrist and Nalissa Smith in that starting lineup together. And I think that if he's willing to, sit Hans Allen and have them in as starters, then he would be willing to adjust to see what Lee Yuru looks like. Geslador and McCowan are going to Eurobasket, so they're going to be missing for a couple of weeks. So I think that it could be attractive. But the thing is, does Dallas have anything that Seattle wants? What would they get out of the trade? We have to think about a lot of times when we're thinking about the trades, we're thinking about, okay, where could the player go? But we also have to consider what does that team that they're going to have to offer the team that's making the trade. So I don't think that Seattle really has Dallas has anything that Seattle wants. I think that Seattle needs a forward at this point. I think that they're missing Horston. And Gabby Williams is playing tremendous. She doesn't have a lot of help in the forward position because Alicia Clark has been hurt. So I think that that's really what they would be looking for. I think the guard position is stacked. The post position is stacked. Dallas ain't the team. Another team where she could go to and see some minutes would be Connecticut. Connecticut also has the cap space, but again, what does Connecticut have that Seattle needs? So she's kind of stuck. She might be stuck for a while, and that's why I think that she also should have been a little more wise with requesting the trade so early because yes, it's business, but it's also people too. So you requesting a trade, so now you're telling the coaches, I don't really want to be here. I don't think that's going to
Right.
help your situation with your playing time. And just in that last time out last night against Phoenix, I didn't see her get a lot of minutes, and I'm like, well, I don't know how this is gonna. I think she shot herself in the foot to be honest. So I don't think that was really a smart thing to do.
Yeah, she got 5 minutes last night. And
Yeah.
in that 5 minutes, all she did was go to the free throw line. That's it. And she had two fouls. So, I mean, you're not really playing as if, oh, and a turnover. So you're not really playing as if, like, to justify getting more minutes at this point.
Exactly. Now, moving on to what was a shock to me is that Aces loss to the Valkyries. Is the Aces dynasty crumbling? What are your thoughts on that game?
Uh, well, that game was what you see when you have a lack of effort from the team, when you see that players just don't, they're not really all there, right? We saw this in the beginning of last season with the Aces when they were missing Chelsea Gray. And a lot of us just assumed, okay, well, we're missing Chelsea. She sets up the offense, like she organizes everybody. But even with Jackie and KP taking over point guard duties, like it really just didn't work that much. And even in the series against New York, we're seeing the same thing. There was what I noticed a lot of was their spacing was off. They were forcing shots. You had instances where they were getting caught on switches on defense, so that was leaving the lane open. The whole starting five was kind of off. The offense was stagnant. When Asia would get triple, double, and triple teamed, when they were trying to take away the paint, there wasn't much movement on the offense. You had a lot of ISO plays going. So I don't know if the dynasty is crumbling so much or if this iteration of the Aces just isn't working. It's they're just not working together right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of prioritization for the guards, which leads me to question, what is the offensive identity for the Aces at this point? I'm seeing Asia on the perimeter coming off screens, setting screens along the perimeter, and not aggressively rolling to the basket. Like you said, they're stagnant in the offense. There's not a lot of cuts when Asia's getting double and triple team. The guards aren't cutting. Asia had 3 turnovers in the first quarter, 5 for the game. When I'm looking at just how the first quarter played out on that first possession, it was a turnover. They're walking to their spots to start the game. I say that they're complacent. When I say this, people are like, I don't know if they're complacent. Asia is, the best player in the world. She's playing some of her best ball. I'm not talking about Asia. I'm talking
Right.
about the team. The team is complacent. And even Asia was walking to her spots, walking to setting the screens. When you see the difference between the energy levels in the Aces and the energy level versus the Valkyries, one team is hungry, one team is, we got this. Like
Yep.
sometimes your head is, I'm Jewel Lloyd. I'm Chelsea Gray. I'm Asia Wilson. I deserve these calls. I'm gonna make these baskets. It's a different mindset that you have coming into a game when you feel like you have something to prove versus when you feel like you have nothing to prove. Kayla Thornton
Exactly.
outworked them. Like
Yep.
she played like a franchise player, and I think they've given her that green light because they know that she has the experience to be that. Just listening to her and Veronica Burton's poise in the press conference. Shout out to Veronica Burton for securing her first double double in her career, 14 points, 12 assists. 12 assists is amazing. That means that she's
Yeah.
working the ball, but that also means that the Valkyries are knocking down shots. Their offense is an offense that includes everyone. I'm seeing the Valkyries make 2 or more passes on the possessions, while I'm seeing the Aces might not even make a pass.
Right.
So there's a difference in the offense, there's a difference in prioritization. Last season, we saw get the ball to Asia. Right now, Asia's not getting any screens set for her. She's setting the screens, and then I'm not really seeing her roll to the basket as much as I would like to see her roll. Asia has to get screens too. Every shot that she takes shouldn't be so difficult. Every shot that she takes shouldn't be something that she creates on her own, which I feel like that's been the majority of how she's been eating this season. You got Jackie Young who went 0 for 5 in that first quarter very quickly, and then they subbed her out. After a couple of minutes, I think it was like after 5 or so minutes, they subbed her out. She was 0 for 5. They put Jewel Lloyd in the game, and Jewel Lloyd immediately takes 2 quick shots. She goes 0 for 2. So it's like the guards are trying to get theirs, but I don't know if they realize that it could be so much more simple if they work the ball. Like everybody wants to be the hero and
Yep.
take these amazing shots when they can just take the efficient shot, the high percentage shot, and you get those from working the ball and running those actions.
It's
The
a lot of
transition
work.
defense as well. Sorry. The
Yeah.
transition defense for the Aces is they're just not finding their man. Like I saw the Valkyries they completely dismantled the Aces transition offense. They got their hands in a lot of those fast break opportunities where the Aces were not being able to capitalize, and it was the complete opposite on the other end. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I was gonna say, I will remember at some point what I was gonna say. It's all good. We can go to the next one.
Oh, but it's crazy when you think about Kayla Thornton had 2 back-to-back threes to end the first half. 8 points in 60 seconds. She had 15 points at the half on 50% shooting in
Yeah.
10 shot attempts. Like Kate Martin and Billings had 7 points at the half. Kate Martin looking like the all-star that we know that she can be. Everybody has their confidence. She's hitting logo threes. So
Yeah.
this was a huge win for the Valkyries, especially after coming off, what was it, a 4 game losing streak to beat a powerhouse like the Aces. That has to feel good.
And the thing is, back to Kate Martin for a moment. Kate Martin is playing like the Kate Martin that I fell in love with at Iowa. Like that is the game that she's getting back to right now, and I'm so happy to see it because Kate has always been this type of player. She's always been the type of player that can hunt her shots, also facilitate pretty well. And she's more than just the 3 and D player that she was forced to be with the Aces, right? That was her role. She fulfilled that role well when she was in there. But now we're starting to see a little bit more of what's in her bag. And I'm just so happy for her. And I'm happy to see it. And I'm happy that everyone else is starting to notice too.
Yeah, that was box office TV. You got the Valkyries scoring 34 points in the second quarter.
Yeah.
What? This is the first time in franchise history where the Aces have lost two 20-point plus games in a season with Becky Hammon as the coach. They had the fewest points in a half by any team this season. So we have to ask the question, was Becky outcoached by Natalie?
Um, I think on some plays, yeah. And the rest of the plays, not so much. It was more so just poor execution on the team's part. But I think that when I think Natalie has a good combination of players who their basketball IQ is not talked about enough, where they can make certain reads and they know what the passes are going to be like, right? They've obviously watched film, they studied that. So they know where to anticipate the passes, they know where to anticipate the cuts. And I think their attention to detail was just a little bit better than the Aces in this instance. So yeah, yeah, partially outcoached and partially just lack of effort.
I'm gonna say they were fully outcoached. Like when I'm looking at, yes, it was effort. Becky Hammon also spoke to effort in the press conference. That's something that coaches can't coach effort, but the game plan. I felt that Golden State had a really strong game plan against Asia Wilson. They were able to pack the paint. They executed everything. And Nakase also, credited the team because they went into their own film study after the loss to Phoenix. They felt like that was a winnable game for them. And they had a bad taste in their mouth from that game. So a lot of things they took it upon the players. So you're right to that regard. Their players have high IQ. But I also think that the overall game plan was better. When I listened to Angel Gray at the half, she was talking, she spoke about speaking to Jewel Lloyd, and Jewel Lloyd said that they spent a lot of time in practice working on their offense. While their offense is a place of concern, their defense has been a place of concern since last season, and definitely in this season because they've had two 20-point losses. So I think that the week that they had, or the time that they had off in this week, could have been dedicated more to their defense because they got outplayed. Their rotations are still slow. They haven't had anything, the flow
Nothing's
of
changed.
everything. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, nothing's
nothing's
changed.
changed.
Exactly. So I think that she got outcoached. I think that also that challenge that was used in the first half was an emotional challenge. It's like Tiffany Mitchell is a great player, but I'm not wasting a challenge in the first half on a Tiffany Mitchell foul. She's not in foul trouble.
Right.
So some of the decisions, when they saw Jackie Young putting up going 0 for 5, they they subbed her out, but then shortly after subbing Jackie Young out, they subbed Jewel Lloyd out, but they put Jackie Young back in for Jewel Lloyd. I would have liked to seen them go to Dana Evans. Granted, they put Dana Evans in shortly after, but I just felt like some of the rotations, sometimes they stick with the starting five a little too long instead of trusting new energy off of the bench. Sometimes you just got to shake it up. So I think all across the board, Natalie Nakase got Becky Hammon's number, and then she credited her in the press conference with saying, everything she learned from Coach Hammon. So I think that it was a great matchup for the players, but it was a even bigger storyline to see the two coaches go head to head after the history behind it. And I also want to throw out the matchup with Asia Wilson and Timmy Benlay got a little chippy.
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting to see the because you really don't see Timmy get fired up, but she was over it.
Yeah. Yes, she was. She was.
She was over it and she started chirping back. Monique Billings had a monster block over Asia Wilson. I thought that block was about to, and then she had those two blocks back to back on the Aces and then came back and hit the three. So I felt like after seeing that, I thought the Aces were about to, go on a tear after that. I thought they were going to take that personally, but it's still just never that fight just never came out. And I talked about Chelsea Gray last episode a little bit with her just underperforming in the assist stat and looking at this game it's not that, because assists go two ways. Like in one regard, the players got to knock down shots for you to get your assist, but then you
Right.
also got to look for players to get the assist. I don't think that Chelsea Gray is looking to pass as quickly as she was in the past. I think that Chelsea Gray is being more aggressive in calling her own number, taking her own shots. When she's getting pick and rolls from Asia, she's not looking for Asia. She's not setting up the defense to get Asia open. And when she does, it might be in the second half of the game after she's already tried, to get herself going offensively. So
Right.
to a certain extent, I feel like Chelsea Gray is being a little more selfish this year. And I think that is overall hurting the flow of the offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought she did a little bit too many of the isolation plays, and I need Chelsea to be a little bit more patient, right? I'm starting to see what we saw in the beginning of Unrivaled when Team Rose was just gelling and everyone was so impatient with each other. They weren't really taking their time. So Chelsea would go into, I'm going to take over this game myself mode when it was her and Ka, and they weren't really executing too well. So I would like to see a little bit more patience. And quite frankly, I thought Chelsea looked better with the bench unit in when it was her, Jackie, Kitley, and Dana, I believe, and Tiff Mitchell. I think they looked a little bit better than Chelsea with the starting five.
I'm just gonna say it. I think the dynasty is crumbling. I think that the end of this season, we're gonna see. I think the only player that is gonna stay, unless she requests out, is Asia Wilson. I think that they're gonna shake up this whole roster. They might even shake
Yeah,
up the GM. Like at this point, I feel like there's a lot of things not working. There was a lot of questionable decisions just from the contract extension with Kia Stokes, with the
yeah,
contract extension of Kirsten Bell. There's been a lot of questionable things from the Aces organization, and I would not be surprised to see everyone go. They completely clear house. I think that it's the end of an era. Like I'm calling it now. I think that they could get better this season. I don't see them as championship contenders. Still one of my favorite organizations. I say this with love, but I say it being realistic with myself and just saying the hard truth. I think that this is the end of an era for the Aces. I don't know if it someone asked if Kelsey Plum, get, having her be traded to the Sparks, was that a part of the crumbling? I don't think that Kelsey
no,
Plum played a big of enough role, even though she played a big role. So I don't want to say it like that. I don't think that Kelsey Plum going to the Sparks impacted how they were playing because they weren't playing well with Kelsey Plum last season.
exactly.
So no, I don't think that Kelsey Plum being traded had anything to do with how they're playing right now. If anything, I felt like it was a lateral move pulling Jewel Lloyd in. Someone also asked, do we think that if Jewel Lloyd is being played the way that she should be played right now, she's sitting in the corner a lot. My opinion is I've seen the Aces trade off with how they use Jewel Lloyd. Like sometimes she is sitting in the corner, kind of waiting for the three, waiting for the ball to come to her.
Yeah.
But I've seen games where they intentionally try to get Jewel going, where she's the one on the ball a lot. But I think that changes, and sometimes it's Jewel Lloyd, and sometimes it's Jackie Young. So I think that they are trying different ways to get Jewel Lloyd going. She's just not performing. She's just not performing.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering if because of the whole thing that's been going on in Seattle and lingering, if that's mentally affecting her still, and that's why she's not performing. Because we're seeing very similar stats to last year's Jewel Lloyd, who was not performing that well.
You could be on to something
Well,
there. I'm just gonna say I felt some of the interviews sounded a little unhealed. I'll put it that way, about the situation. It is pretty fresh. So it takes a while to get back to who you are, and it's normal to be a little salty, be a little bitter about how things unfolded with the franchise that you've been with from the start of your career. So
oh,
she,
absolutely,
yeah, she
yeah.
could very much so still be dealing with some mental things, even though she's changed her environment. I can see that.
All right.
So moving to the Valkyries and their success, do they get to five? Do they get to plus 500? I'm gonna ask you again. I asked you before. Do you think that they make it now after seeing this performance?
I said yes that they made it before. I said yes they would
Mm,
make it before.
it
You're
wasn't
the
a
one that
hard
said they
yes.
wouldn't.
It wasn't a
Okay,
hard yes.
okay,
You
okay,
you
but
said it's not looking like it.
I said okay. I said that by the end of the season they probably would end up that way, but at the time they weren't looking like it. Um, I still think they end up at either 500 or maybe slightly over. I'm not wavering from that. I do think that they still make it. I think that they're starting to learn from their mistakes. They're starting to change things, right? We're even seeing how they're closing games better. Yes, that game against Phoenix was ugly. They were tired. They were making like little mistakes here and there, but they went back and they watched that film and you could see more effort. You could see more aggression on their defense from them. They were still trying to hunt their shots. They had more ball movement to find better open shots for players. Like the opportunities were just there. And the players that you expected to take over a game, like a Kayla Thornton, they were taking over games. Um, I'm going to say this and I fully stand by it. When Tip comes back, she's got to come off the bench. They play better without her in that starting lineup. She's got to come off the bench.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they make it to 500. I think that what has been one of their ailments is their turnovers. They
Hmm.
look to have gotten it together against the Aces, but granted, the Aces aren't the strongest defensive team to really put that to a test. I looked over stats earlier in the week, and through their five losses, they conceded 115 points. That is a crazy stat line. They had 95 turnovers in those five losses. So they definitely have to get that under control. And once they do, and they keep shooting at the clip that they're shooting at, they're a hard team to beat already.
Yeah.
So with them learning at the rate that they're learning, with the players as hungry as they are, they have a chip on their shoulder, I feel like more than any other team. Like it's rivaling the chip that we feel Minnesota has on their shoulder from losing in the finals the way that they did. So I think a
Right.
team like that is dangerous. It's a bit scary. And I think anything could happen with them. But I think that I have a confident yes in them at 500 at the end of the season.
Okay.
So moving into the Chicago Sky, I
Yeah.
just I'm gonna give myself time to breathe for this one. What are your thoughts on the Chicago Sky? How did they look in that Fever matchup to you?
Horrible. The first quarter was their only good quarter. The first quarter was their only good quarter where they played a complete game. It went downhill from there. And I'm really starting to question something. Oh, okay. before I get into what I'm questioning, what I'll say that looked good from them in the first quarter was that they had ball movement, they had good spacing, they were finding the right reads. Uh, Camilla's being way more aggressive, which I can appreciate. I still need her verticality to just be a little bit higher, because she's getting a lot of fouls called against her, which I feel like some of them are tic tac fouls, but a lot of it is how she's defending. Um, they really didn't have a lot of help side. Everyone kept driving into the paint despite Indiana trying to take the paint away from them. They weren't able to successfully collapse the defense a lot. I understand why Atkins went 0 for 5 in the first half because she was really trying to hunt her shot, and she needed a couple to go through as a volume shooter. Angel Reese was passing out, which was a lot better. But I don't know. I think the players are buying into the system, or at least attempting to buy into the system. I don't think the system's fully working. Um, Tyler is preparing for the game ahead of him based on film, but he's not making enough adjustments or changes for the live game actions that are happening because their offense became stagnant in the second, third, fourth quarters, just like Indiana's offense was stagnant within the first quarter. And I think that is where he's getting stuck, right? He's running plays for someone that's like a KP type or that's like an Asia type. It's just not working at the moment. And I also feel like with Sloop being out, that's gonna affect them. Like Sloot organizes everything for them. She gets them going. And you can painfully see that without Sloot, they were having issues. They didn't Haley Van Liff wasn't doing what we expect a Haley Van Lift to do in this situation. And I think that's because she also doesn't know or doesn't have enough guidance of what she should do. And I think there was a lot of lack of effort on some parts. There was just overshooting. It didn't look good. That's all I can say. It didn't look pretty, and I'm tired of this being a rivalry because it never looks pretty against them. These games never look pretty.
And I'm just gonna keep it a buck, man. Their games are hard to watch against anybody. It ain't even just Indiana. It's just bad basketball at this point. I think this group of players have no chemistry. And I've been giving it time, and I'm trying to be patient because I want nothing but the best for Angel and Camilla. They're the reasons why I even tune into Chicago. But
Yeah.
the issues for Chicago run up to the front office. It runs up to ownership. They hired Coach Spoon before they hired Jeff looking into last season. And they hired Jeff, and he comes into the position with no prior experience in GM or management. And this is the
Right.
organization's first time having a GM in a standalone position. That GM role has always been shared, whether it's been like the head coach also acts as the GM. So this is the first time that the org hires a standalone GM and then they hire an inexperienced GM who has a background in player skill development. He
Mm-hmm.
then goes on to make a reckless decision in firing a coach after one season and then
Yep.
hires a coach who has no head coaching experience, but whose background is also in skill development. Having your young franchise players in the hands of someone with no experience just creates a chaotic environment. They go on to trade away Marina Mabrey for a bag of chips and a Coke. I get she wanted to leave, but they probably could have got something better out of that. They could have waited to see what they could have gotten for Marina Mabrey. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trusting like them with draft picks at this point. They traded away their draft picks in this upcoming draft. At this point, we're not seeing Jeff make smart decisions. I think that this is another team that is going to have to be uprooted at the end of the season. I think that they got to uproot from the GM from the GM to the players. Like I don't understand the makeup of the players on this roster and what they were really trying to accomplish. Some people are saying, that they wanted to tank. I just
No,
I don't think that. I think
I
that
don't know.
they really felt like, this roster could do something, but all I'm seeing is a bunch of bad decisions. And I was one of the people that was trying to, like, everybody calm down, just wait and see. I had a lot of faith in Tyler, but sometimes coming from that very specified role to having to look at the bigger picture of things can be a difficult transition. Not having any head coaching position and you're coming into this type of environment, that's a hell of a transition. And that's kind of the same thing that we're seeing in Dallas with Conclanis. He's
Yeah.
a coach. I think at one point he might have been a video coordinator at one point, and then he was an assistant coach specifying in defense, and now he's having to look at the full picture. Tyler Marsh was a video coordinator with the Toronto Raptors, then he was an assistant coach. So they have very, focused backgrounds instead of a coach that knows how to balance things. And I think that's what's happening. But even with the development, I don't even know what's going on there. We saw some glimpses. I don't know if you saw the clip of Angel Reese working out.
Yeah.
And I think that that drill, it's not the worst drill, but it's also not the best drill. And granted, we're only seeing a small timestamp of what practice could look like. But I just think that there's better ways to do what they're trying to do. I talked about a lot of that in the last episode, but I think that Chicago is a hard team to watch right now. I'm trying to stick it out, but yeah.
And and the thing is, unfortunately, with how they're playing right now, uh, they don't even own their draft picks for next year. So yeah, Chicago's playing badly, but it's gonna benefit Minnesota and it's gonna benefit Washington. Like it doesn't even benefit Chicago how they're playing right now at all. And I know a lot of people talk about the fact that, oh, can we fire a coach midway through? Klukanis needs to go. I mean, at this point, both of them are gonna have to go. They're both just not they're both not doing well. I don't know if they're not leaning into their assistants enough because with Chicago, when they're sitting on the bench, I notice the players more so talk to each other, right? You got the vets talking to the younger players about what's going on. And even in Dallas, when the players go to the bench, they move to sit next to Nola. They talk to Nola about what's going on. They're not even so much approaching Chris or his sister or whomever else is on the staff. And I think, that's a lack of confidence within your coach yourself. And I don't know. It's rough. I feel like we're going to see those two in LA vying it out for whoever's going to get the number one pick.
Then you bringing up Conclanis' sister on the sideline makes me think Tyler Marsh has his dad on the sideline, and we bring up assistants. He also has Tanisha Wright on the sideline, who I don't know if she's the best coach to have on the sideline for as far as a emotional standpoint. I felt like watching her in Atlanta, she didn't have a great, it didn't appear that she had a great relationship with the players. I don't know. I don't know. And when I think of assistants, I think of an assistant that is like Nola, a person that the players want to talk to about things. I don't know if Tanisha Wright is that person for that team. And I'm gonna say it. I think that they look better with Coach Spoon. Granted, they had a completely different roster, so it's hard to compare like the skill set because they had players that can create their own shot. They had Kennedy Carter, Marina Mabry, Lindsey Allen, Dana Evans. So they had a completely different personnel from their guard standpoint, which is going to make a team better. But I think even from a morale standpoint, they look like a better team. This team doesn't look happy. Like people
Yeah.
are asking, so we got a question from the Hoops Tribe. What do I think of the downfall of Angel Reese's offense? Last season, she started the season with 5 straight games with double-digit points. shooting over 35% and under two turnovers. This year, she's averaging under 10 points per game, almost four turnovers, and a league worst 30% shooting. That comes from coaching. It's not that Angel is still Angel, okay? But now she's playing out of position. They forced her into the point forward role very quickly. They just really threw her out there in it, and she's suffering. And then
Yep.
on top of her suffer, she's suffering out loud in public, and she's the most popular player in the game. She has the most followers of any player in the WNBA. So I'm gonna just say it. She's the most popular player in the game, and they're embarrassing her. Like it's like I feel so many different ways about that. And most of how Angel is performing is due to coaching. And then on top of her going through this and having to navigate this very publicly, I don't know if she's getting the emotional support. She's telling us that she is, but I don't know if she is getting the emotional support from the coaching staff because Coach Spoon was the coach that could do that. And she was very protective over Angel, Kennedy, and Camilla. So I don't know if they're getting that same emotional support. They're definitely not, they're playing out of position, so they're not getting the support on the court with the plays that are being drawn up. Last season, we saw post players setting each other screens. We saw
Yep.
people them setting screens in the post for each other. This season, Angel's having to work on the perimeter. She's not getting any screens. She's the person setting the screen. It's very similar to what is happening in Las Vegas. So honestly, that makes sense because that's where Tyler Marsh is coming from. And most of the time coaches coach like how they were coached, and they coach like the people that they work underneath. So I feel like Tyler could also be bringing in a lot of that aces, mo to Chicago, and it's a completely different team with a completely different, they're not playing to the strengths of the player. They're playing in the way that they just want things to go, and that's just not realistic.
Right. And here's the thing about Angel, and I agree with you that it is coaching. And the reason why I especially agree with you that it's coaching is because look at Unrivaled. And for everyone who wants to say, well, 3x3 is not the same as 5 and 5, there's similar actions, there's similar things that are done. There's a reason why I'm bringing this up. In Unrivaled, Angel got that one-on-one time in player development. Yes, she is getting some of it with the sky as we're seeing, but her finishes at the rim were better. She was slowing herself down and really taking her time instead of rushing. And she wasn't just stuck on setting screens or sitting on the perimeter to shoot threes. Like Nola really encouraged her to play her inside game, which is what she's good at. She encouraged her to hit the mid range when the inside game is taken away from her. And she encouraged her to hit a three when she was open or when she thought that she got a good look. And I don't think that Tyler is setting her up for success like that. And I just don't see it. So that's why I agree with you that it's coaching, and I don't think it's necessarily Angel herself. Although yes, there could be a mental component with everything that she's going dealing with right now, because God knows that that affected more than half the league last season. Um, but and I think that's the struggle for not just Angel, but a lot of our sophomore players is new systems, new coaches, being played out of position, just trying to find their footing again.
Then you have a coach who is just refusing to really make adjustments. And
Yep.
we heard it in the press conference. Like I credit the media person because usually I don't think the journalists ask the questions that people really want to know. And this journalist straight up asked Tyler Marsh, does he think that Beck Allen could work her way into the starting lineup? And he says, I don't know. Kia Nurse is, performing well. She's giving us good minutes. Kia Nurse shot 20% in the game against Indiana to Beck Allen's 50% off of the bench. Uh, you know, things,
Hmm.
I just feel like it's been enough games to make changes at this point, and
And
it's been enough losses to tell yourself, hey, what I'm thinking or what I'm trying is not working. Let's try something new.
and let's not forget when Kia Nurse was starting in LA, I believe it took about 10, maybe 11 games for them to pull her out of the starting lineup because they realized it wasn't working and she had to come off the bench. I think Beck Allen has been the most consistent bench player that they have right now. And she has been what's kept them in games. She was keeping them in the game last night. I mean, and furthermore, I understand that Maddie Westbell was dealing with recovering from foot surgery in January, getting more comfortable with herself and her playing style, as well as like the ailment with her ankle that she had been dealing with. But Maddie Westbell needs to see more time. If
Absolutely.
Angel's being double and tripled and like she is not able to do what she needs to do and you need to sit her down, put Maddie in. There is a reason why Maddie was drafted where she was drafted. There's a thing that they don't talk about with Notre Dame is their bigs. Some of the Notre Dame bigs actually they'll play defense well and allow them can convert on offense. And Maddie is that type of player that she has a three-level game. She's got a mid-range, she's got the three-point in her bag, and she can finish at the rim. So she needs more time out there as well.
The plus side is the silver lining that I always see with injuries is that it forces coaches to have to do something that they probably were not going to do in the first place. So with this injury, I think that we're going to see more playing time from West Bell. They're going to have to look to their bench more. I think that Sloot's injury it's going to, I don't know exactly what it is. I just know that it's going to take some time to heal from it, whatever it is, because it looked bad. And
Yeah.
we know that they're probably going to need to do a hardship contract. And when I think of that, I'm thinking Deja Kelly. I'm thinking Destiny Henderson, Serena
Yep.
Sundell, Yvonne Anderson, Zay Green. They need guards that are high energy guards that can create their own offense. I think that that's what they had in Kennedy Carter.
Yep.
That's what they had in, really in Dana Evans. Dana Evans can create her own shots. Lindsay Allen can when she wanted to be aggressive. So they're gonna need guards who can hunt their own shots, who are a little bit quicker. They are just slow. Hold it like even with Sloot there, they don't have quick guards. So they're gonna need speed to try to push some pace. Do you have any thoughts on who they could pick up in a hardship contract?
I mean, you named all the people I was gonna name. Like Deja or Destiny would certainly be good. I think once Ari McDonald is done with her hardship in Indiana, they should really look into getting her because I think that she can fit and push pace in just about any system. Like we saw the effects that she's had on Indiana so far. So I think that I mean she would be a good option as well. But there's not really that many point guards left right now
Right.
that are free with experience that can come in and just pick up things, you know?
Right. So we talked about who has not been impressing us. Who's impressing you right now? Any player standing
Oh,
out?
oh my gosh, yeah. Are we talking rookies, vets, all of them? Because I've got a list of players that have been impressing me that I've been keeping track of. For for the rookies, I'm gonna go with my big three, right? Paige, Sonia, Kiki. But I also want to throw in Sanaya Rivers and Lexi Held in there. I think Lexi Held has been phenomenal off the bench. She's been hitting three-pointers. She's been driving in for certain shots. I think Sanaya Rivers has definitely multiple future depoys in her career. Gabby Williams, Dejanay, and Alicia Gray are other players that have really impressed me, but heavy on Gabby Williams. This one, to have Gabby Williams here for an entire season is just a treat. We normally only get her for like post Olympic break or post Eurobasket break, but to have her here for the entire season and she's not going to compete for Team France in Eurobasket, that's even better from Seattle. Gabby's been coming up clutch in several moments. I mean, the game last night against Phoenix, 80% from the field and 83% from three. Are you kidding me? Like, Gabby is now showing me that she's coming for that most improved award as well.
Absolutely. I'm going to agree with pretty much everyone that you said. I'm going to throw in Janelle Salon. I think that
Hmm.
she's one of the rookies that's really standing out to me. She's been consistent all season and should be a part of that all rookie team. They're gonna have a lot to think about when it comes to making those selections for all rookie teams. And then I'm gonna have to go Marina Mabry coming off a huge
Yeah.
34-point game in the win over Atlanta. 59% from the floor. She had 4 big assists. She's really embracing her leadership role. And I'm really happy that, she's getting this opportunity to lead. I don't know if she's going to be traded. I don't know what her future looks like if she stays with Connecticut because she did request that trade that was denied. But she's making her trade stop go up with the run that she's on. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm I'm really liking what I've seen from Marina Mabrey and also Gabby Williams. She's just been super efficient, probably one of the most efficient in the league. I think that she might be a top 25 player right now. I don't know. I have to really take a look at the stats and really think about it. But Gabby Williams is just playing incredible.
Yeah.
But with that said, who is going to beat the Minnesota Lynx? Who is going to beat the New York Liberty? They can't stay 8-0 forever, or can they?
So I think with how the Liberty is playing, they can I think they're gonna be the first ones with the loss. I
Mm.
think it's gonna be the Liberty. I don't think it's gonna be the Lynx. And the reason I say it's not gonna be the Lynx is because I noticed that the Lynx are getting better with each game, right? K-Mac is finding her groove, which was their missing piece. I think with the Liberty, especially this game against the Washington, just exposed that they can get really tired down the stretch against a team that's really working them defensively. And I think that could be one of their Achilles heels coming up with tough teams that they face. So I think right now, especially considering that the Valkyries were so close to beating both of them, I think the Valkyries or Atlanta is going to be the team to give the Liberty their first loss.
So I half agree with you. I agree that the Valkyries are going to be the team that delivers the upset to one of these teams. But
Okay.
honestly, I'm gonna go Minnesota losing first.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I think that Minnesota does look better with K-Mac in the lineup, but in the beginning of the season, honestly, I felt like they were playing like shit. Like they were getting away with some wins by the the grace of God, really. I don't even know like how they came away with some of those wins, but honestly, they were not playing well. So I think that Minnesota could be there. I mean, I feel like the Liberty has their moments in the game where they kind of just, yeah, we winning. Let me just throw up some threes. Let me just do whatever right now. They get a
Mm-hmm.
little lazy, but I
Yep.
don't think it's ever a matter of them looking as sloppy as Minnesota has looked. I feel like Minnesota has had a lot of turnovers and they just look stagnant sometimes to start games. So I'm gonna go
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota with the first. I think the Valkyries could be the one that delivers the loss. The only thing about that is the Valkyries won't play Minnesota for a while now. The next time they play them will be July. So that means that Minnesota will have to stay undefeated for a very long time. But looking into the schedule, that could really be a thing. That I feel like the
Right?
toughest matchup that they have is going to be the Storm coming up on June 11th and then Atlanta on June 27th. But yeah, I don't know. They kind of got it easy. Not necessarily easy because I mean anything can happen, but yeah, that's what.
I also just wanna now listen. Sometimes I live in the land of delusion, but with how the Mystics are playing right now and how they are keeping I'm gonna brag on them for a moment because to lose by 22 points against New York, your first time facing them, and then a week later to only lose by 8 points, facing the same exact team, right? And granted, JJ being out was a huge blow to New York, but Stewie was shooting on 50%. So I say Stewie, made up for a little bit of that. But I think just looking at how they're playing, I want to see them topple Seattle or Minnesota. I want to see if it's possible. I want to see if they can read the coverages right and get the right schemes to be able to take one of them down. I think that would make for a good storyline. And I also think Seattle and Phoenix, that's a new rivalry that we need to keep our eye on right there.
Yeah, I love that game. I love that matchup. Yeah, the Liberty probably have a harder schedule than the Lynx moving forward. So you might be right on this one. I'm not making any bets. I'm not I'm not making any bets on it. But we'll see because in the upcoming matchups, we have to talk about that before we wrap. We got uh Sky versus the Liberty on June 10th. And then the Liberty will face Indiana on June, what is that? June 14th. I think that's going to be
Ooh,
interesting because they'll have Caitlin Clark back more than likely.
yeah, by
Um,
that time.
yeah, and then we have Connecticut against the Mystics today, Minnesota against Dallas today, the Valkyries against the Sparks tomorrow. That's Monday. Yeah, just a lot of good basketball, a lot of solid matchups. I'm really looking forward to that Minnesota versus Seattle game. Hopefully, Seattle can get some get back. And that's on June 11th. So I feel like that might be the toughest matchup for the Lynx in the near future, but we shall
Yeah.
see. Before we close out, I just want to let everyone know that I am hosting another event. So if you remember Rooftop Rebound that was in DC, we're having the fifth quarter here in Atlanta. It's an after party for the Atlanta Dream versus Chicago game on June 13th. So I'm looking forward to seeing your beautiful faces there. We're gonna talk hoops, we're gonna be drinks, we're gonna party. We're just gonna have fun and live in community because that's really what I want to bridge with this platform. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
Yeah, first closing remark is I am jealous that you get to see some of our favorite cousins over with the courtside cousins. Definitely gonna have some FOMO with that. But and I will also be in Atlanta in the end of August. I'll get the exact date out there for y'all soon. So anyone going to the Atlanta versus Aces game, if y'all want to say hi, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody.
Yes, yes, yes. Make sure you connect with Daydream one on all platforms. Also, shout out to Courtside Cousins. I'm glad you brought that up. Courtside Cousins will be in the building at the fifth quarter, and we'll be going back and forth on this podcast. And if you follow them on Threads, you just know that they're a funny bunch. So it should be
Yeah.
very entertaining. As always, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's talk hoops.